He never appeared on magazine covers, never wrote a memoir, never stirred up headlines just to be noticed. Yet through more than half a century of Kiss's fiery reign, Eric Singer, the quiet drummer with Swiss clock precision, has remained the most steadfast man beside Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. As the band's brightest stars faded one by one, he was the one who kept hitting those final beats, closing out the 50-year journey with steady, cold, enduring rhythm, like the heartbeat of Kiss itself. Before becoming the Catman, the feline persona once tied to Peter Criss, Eric had already drummed for Black Sabbath, Gary Moore, and Alice Cooper. He had performed before hundreds of thousands, yet after each show, he would slip silently backstage like a shadow. No waving, no autographs, no need for attention. Those who knew him said only one thing: if Eric's playing, the show won't fall apart. But that same silence made him the center of decades-long controversy, from the iconic mask to persistent accusations of playback drumming on stage. Millions of Kiss fans argued fiercely, while Eric simply stayed silent, just as he had since childhood when his father taught him. Music doesn't need words, it only needs to stay in time. Was he merely a substitute, or a rare portrait of an artist who chose devotion over spotlight? This story has no grand explosion. It's a long, quiet symphony of endurance, about the man who kept time for a giant machine while the world only watched the front men. And when all the lights go out, his drums still echo, steady, precise, and never missing a beat. But to understand how he could live an entire life in silence and still earn the world's respect, we have to go back to where it all began, where the first drum beat didn't echo from a stage of flashing lights, but from a small house in Cleveland, Ohio. Eric Singer, born Eric Doyle Mensinger on May 12, 1958, came from a family where music wasn't just a passion, it was law. His father, Jack Mensinger, was a seasoned big band leader who played saxophone with some of the most renowned orchestras of the 1940s and 1950s. In that house, everything revolved around sound. Every meal, every conversation, even silence had its own rhythm. From an early age, Eric was accustomed to hearing his father's saxophone late at night, the phone calls booking gigs, and the long road trips with no certain return. His childhood wasn't loud or carefree like most kids. It was filled with drums, instruments, and discipline. When he was 11, his father gave him his first drum kit, not as a gift, but as a test. The elder Mensinger never lectured, he trained through precision. Eric had to keep perfect time, never missing a single beat. One mistake meant starting over. In that world, accuracy wasn't a preference, it was survival. Eric learned to play music the way others learned to breathe, without flair, without pretension. He wasn't taught to become a star, but to never disturb the rhythm. When his father died suddenly, the 15-year-old boy sat quietly behind his drums, replaying his father's unfinished melodies again and again, his only way to say goodbye. From that moment, music was no longer a passion. It became the one thread that kept him connected to the man he'd lost. He didn't rebel, didn't give up. Eric kept playing, carrying his father's discipline into every strike of the drum. While other kids dreamed of becoming singers, he dreamed of being the one who kept time, the one who made sure the music never stopped. And perhaps from that very moment, his destiny was sealed. To be the man standing behind the lights, keeping the world in rhythm. After graduating from Euclid High School in 1976, Eric didn't chase the stage, the place where lights blind and egos flare. Instead, he chose to work at King Musical Instruments in Ohio, a factory smelling of oil and brass. There, he spent hours testing drums and horns, learning to feel vibration through his hands. That's where he discovered the lifelong truth he would carry with him. Music isn't just emotion. It's precision. Accuracy doesn't kill the soul. It keeps it from shattering. By the early 1980s, as the waves of metal and hard rock began to rise, Eric left the factory and dove into the chaotic world of local bands. No fame, no big contracts, just sweat, smoke, and relentless sound in small bars. There, he became one of the most sought-after session drummers, known for his lightning-fast sight reading and flawless takes. While most musicians craved the spotlight, Eric found joy in the shadows, making sure others never lost their rhythm. In 1984, his first major break came when he joined Lita Ford, the former Runaways guitarist, on her Dancin' on the Edge tour. On the blazing glam metal stages of the 80s, where everything was about speed and spectacle, Eric stood out for being explosive yet controlled. His drumming became the steel backbone to Ford's guitar fire, keeping the chaos in perfect time, something critics couldn't ignore. From there, doors kept opening. Gary Moore, famously demanding of his drummers, chose Eric for his European tour. Paul Stanley invited him to his solo project. Jake E. Lee recruited him for Badlands, alongside powerhouse vocalist Ray Gillen. In every collaboration, Eric left the same mark. He never sought attention, never competed for the spotlight. He simply made everything work better. Then, in 1986, fate came calling. Black Sabbath, the very temple of heavy metal, invited Eric to replace Bill Ward. It wasn't just a gig, it was a trial by fire. On The Eternal Idol, 1987, his drumming was heavy, precise, and unyielding, rhythms that became the quiet engine of Sabbath's rebirth after years of chaos. The album didn't explode in sales, but it proved one thing. Eric Singer had entered the elite ranks of metal's true professionals. But professionalism came with a price: loneliness. On every tour night, he was always the last to leave the stage. No parties, no champagne, just checking his kit, then disappearing into the dark. In a world where everyone screamed to be heard, Eric chose silence, letting the drums speak for him. And slowly, a reputation was born, needing no promotion. If Eric Singer's there, the show won't collapse. After years of drifting through countless projects, 1991 marked the defining turning point in Eric Singer's life, when Kiss, one of the biggest bands on the planet, fell into crisis. Drummer Eric Carr, who had succeeded the legendary Peter Criss, passed away from heart cancer after a long battle in the hospital. The Kiss stage suddenly fell silent. Not just because the drums had stopped, but because the band had lost its heartbeat. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley needed someone strong enough to keep the pulse alive, and the name they called was Eric Singer. Joining Kiss. At such a fragile moment, Eric understood he wasn't just filling an empty seat. He was stepping into sacred ground, under unbearable pressure. When Revenge, 1992, was released, it carried the breath of rebirth. From the opening drum intro of Unholy, Eric's drumming struck like a declaration of war, hard, cold, and decisive. This was no longer the glittery, image-driven Kiss of glam rock. This was a band that had walked through loss, wiped its tears, and returned with primal force. Revenge was hailed by critics as the band's heaviest and most consistent album since Creatures of the Night, 1982. And at the heart of that resurrection was the new drummer, the man who spoke only through his playing. For the next 2 years, Eric toured the world with Kiss and appeared on Alive the 3rd, 1993, a live album proving the band still had fire in its veins. He wasn't just the drummer. He was the technical backbone, the one who kept everything running smoothly through hundreds of shows filled with fireworks, flames, and pyrotechnics that could easily collapse into chaos if the timing slipped by even a second. When Kiss My Ass, 1994, a tribute album reimagining the band's classics, was released, Eric again provided the stability that made every detail perfect. But then, as if fate demanded repetition, Kiss announced in 1996 that the original lineup would reunite. Peter Criss was back. Eric Singer took off his makeup, packed up his drums, and quietly stepped away. No anger, no statements, no resentment. Amidst media frenzy and fan speculation, he chose the only response he believed in: silence. It was a rare moment in rock history, when the more skilled musician accepted stepping aside, knowing that music is greater than ego. For Eric, keeping time for Kiss during its darkest hour had been enough. When the spotlight called the originals home, he simply smiled and left. Like a soldier who had completed his mission and quietly walked off the battlefield, without applause or farewell. After leaving Kiss, Eric didn't rest for a single day. Almost immediately, he received a call from Alice Cooper, one of rock's most theatrical and demanding legends. Cooper didn't just need a good drummer. He needed someone who understood how to hold an entire show together, where music, stage effects, and dramatic tension all had to move like a single perfect machine. And Eric, the boy who once inspected every bolt in an instrument factory, was the perfect choice for the job. In Cooper's band, Eric wasn't just the drummer. He was part of the design. He helped arrange stage layouts, synchronize lighting cues with explosions, and ensure that every smoke burst hit exactly on the beat. His precision and reliability led Alice Cooper to publicly call him the most solid and dependable drummer I've ever played with. It wasn't just a compliment to his skill, it was recognition of the trust he brought to every stage he set foot on. With Eric behind the kit, everyone else could dare to go wild. During those years, Eric was no longer a hired gun. He became the musician veteran artists trusted absolutely, an irreplaceable link in any professional setup. Though he never sought the spotlight, he became the embodiment of the timekeeper ideal. Never wrong, never late, always exactly where the music needed him to be. But destiny has a way of circling back. In 2001, when Peter Criss once again left Kiss over internal disputes, Eric Singer was called back. This time, however, the band asked him not only to play, but to wear the Catman makeup, the iconic symbol that had defined Criss since the beginning. The decision sent shockwaves through the fan base. For many die-hard fans, seeing another man behind that mask felt like sacrilege. Forums erupted. Old Catman posters were raised in protest. Eric didn't explain, didn't justify, didn't fight back. On stage, he simply showed up on time, put on the makeup, and played as if nothing had happened. To him, the job wasn't about inheriting a symbol. It was about keeping Kiss in rhythm between its past and its present. The second Catman image became a permanent scar in his career, both an honor and a burden that only a man of absolute steadiness could carry. As Kiss entered the new millennium, Eric became the anchor of its modern lineup. The albums Sonic Boom, 2009, and Monster, 2012, marked a fierce rebirth for the band after years of silence in the studio. Eric's drumming was thick, powerful, and surgically precise, giving tracks like Modern Day Delilah and Hell or Hallelujah a 21st century edge while preserving the old Kiss soul. For the first time, fans saw him not only play, but sing. On All for the Glory, Eric's strong, raw voice stunned audiences. The man who had always stayed behind now made the stage tremble with a single verse. From 2019 to 2023, Kiss launched the End of the Road Tour, the longest farewell tour in the band's history, spanning over 200 cities worldwide. As age slowed Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, it was Eric who kept the machine running smoothly. Amid the fireworks, fake blood, and blinding lights, he remained the mechanical heart of Kiss, the clockwork engine ensuring every beat stayed true. No one cheered his name, no one shouted for him alone. But if the concert went flawlessly, if the explosions hit right on cue and the audience roared at the perfect moment, it was because of the man behind the mask. The one who, though most debated, was the reason Kiss could end its 50-year odyssey on a perfect, unwavering beat. When End of the Road reached its final night, no one said it aloud, but everyone knew. This was the end. In December 2023, at Madison Square Garden, the place where Kiss's dream had begun nearly half a century earlier, Eric Singer sat behind his drums, his hands still steady and unshakable, as if it weren't the last time. His final beats of rock and roll all night echoed like the last heartbeats of an era. As fireworks exploded and Simmons and Stanley bowed to a roaring crowd, Eric kept the tempo until the very last flicker of light went out. That night, Kiss officially closed its 50-year journey. No one collapsed, no one left in bitterness, just a show ending right on time, in perfect rhythm, the Kiss way. Amid the smoke and cheers, Eric quietly removed his gloves and placed them on his drum kit, a ritual farewell. No speech, no goodbye. He did the only thing he'd ever done. He played to the final note, precise as a heartbeat, stopping at the exact right moment. To many, it was the end of a legend. But to Eric Singer, it was simply the moment when the work was done. A long chapter closed, and the man who had kept time for the giant machine walked off stage. No lights, no fireworks. Only the lingering echo of his drums resonating in the empty space, like the aftersound of a legend who always knew when to stop, and stop on time. But even after Kiss closed the curtain on its historic journey, the controversies surrounding Eric Singer never truly faded. In a career defined by quiet professionalism, what drew the most attention wasn't his drumming, but the black and white face paint he wore, the symbol of the Catman. That symbol had always belonged to Peter Criss, the original drummer and one of Kiss's founding members alongside Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. When Criss left the group, Eric was invited back in 2001, and the band decided he would also take on that legendary persona. To the most devoted fans, this wasn't just a replacement. It was a violation of something sacred. Across forums and music magazines, headlines like "The Fake Catman" spread widely. Some fans called for boycotts, others expressed deep disappointment, insisting that Peter Criss was the one and only Catman, and anyone else, no matter how skilled, was merely playing a part. Amid the storm, Eric chose the only response he knew: silence. No rebuttals, no justifications. Each night, he put on the makeup, took his place behind the drums, and played every beat with perfect precision. He wasn't trying to claim another man's legacy. He was keeping Kiss running, ensuring that another legacy, the music itself, would never break. To those who understood him, it wasn't submission, it was loyalty to his craft, to his band, and to the audience. Yet the controversy didn't stop there. In 2022, during an End of the Road Tour show in Antwerp, Belgium, a short clip went viral showing the drums and backing instruments seemingly out of sync by a few beats. Instantly, speculation erupted. Was Kiss using backing tracks, pre-recorded music, during live performances? And if so, was Eric keeping time to something fake? The fan base split, and the global press pounced. The band, as always, remained silent. Later, a crew member clarified that it had been a simple technical glitch, a few seconds of signal delay on stage, with no cheating involved. But once doubt takes root, truth often becomes weaker than perception. Amid all the noise, few knew that behind the scenes, Eric was still the last to leave. At one KISS convention, he stayed nearly 3 hours after the show, signing autographs for every fan who waited long after the stage had been cleared. On another occasion, he quietly gave away his own snare drum to a young boy who couldn't afford a VIP ticket, simply because he noticed the kid keeping perfect time to the songs. No cameras, no social media posts, no publicity. Just a quiet moment between a musician and his listener. Eric Singer has never needed scandal, yet he has weathered storms with a unique kind of strength, enduring silence. When others fought back, he played. When the world argued, he simply kept time. And that, the calm, cold steadiness of a man who never flinches, is what has kept him standing for over 3 decades, through battles of ego, waves of criticism, and one of the most demanding fan bases in the world. Eric Singer never needed to prove himself right, because every night, as his drums thundered across the stage, all doubts dissolved in rhythm. Behind the makeup, behind the blazing stages and the waves of controversy, Eric Singer is a completely different man. Calm, reserved, and almost detached from the world of show business. Though he has spent decades as part of one of the most flamboyant bands in rock history, he has never lived like a star. No parties, no noise, no scandals. While his bandmates and peers often made headlines, Eric chose silence, living a private life that few have ever truly known. For more than 4 decades, he has rarely spoken about his personal life. He once went through a marriage but never revealed his wife's identity, nor has he ever discussed why it ended. In the mid-2000s, he dated a German woman outside the music industry, but the relationship quietly ended after a year. No public photos, no breakup statements, no drama. It ended as quietly as it began. Far from the edgy Catman image on stage, the real Eric is a man who values order and detail. He spends hours studying the mechanics of wristwatches, attending exhibitions like Baselworld, not as a celebrity, but as a true technical enthusiast. In his garage, he restores vintage cars, polishing each engine part by hand, just as meticulously as he adjusts each cymbal before a show. Careful, precise, endlessly patient. No children, no lavish weddings, no flaunting of wealth. Eric seems to have found peace in the smallest things. A morning cup of coffee, the steady motion of a clock gear, or the perfect resonance of a drum beat in the rehearsal room. The woman who has shared his life for over 13 years, Geraldine Schofield, lives just as simply. The two rarely appear in public, but in the few photos Eric has shared, and sometimes just a modest smile on Valentine's Day, one can see a quiet, enduring love that doesn't need display. In his later years, Eric Singer lives the kind of life many rock stars dream of, peaceful, fulfilled, with nothing left to prove. After a lifetime of keeping time for others, perhaps now he is finally living at his own tempo. Slower, quieter, but still perfectly precise, just as he has always been. When the final fireworks of the End of the Road tour faded at Madison Square Garden in December 2023, Eric Singer began a new chapter. No retirement announcement, no farewell speech, just a quiet exit from the spotlight, exactly as he had entered. Calm, precise, and without the need for witnesses. Yet music never left him. It simply changed rhythm, slower, deeper, and more human. In December 2024, Eric made an unexpected appearance at KISS Cancer Goodbye 3rd in Sarasota, Florida. a 3-day charity event supporting the American Cancer Society. There was no makeup, no flames, no fake blood, only a 66-year-old man sitting behind his familiar drum kit, playing each beat as if it carried his entire heart. This time, Eric wasn't drumming for Kiss. He was drumming for life. By February 2025, he touched fans once more by participating in Kiss Live Auctions, an online event where he personally auctioned off memorabilia from his 30 years with the band. From the Revenge Tour drum kit to worn stage accessories. Gone was the distance between artist and audience. Eric shared intimate stories behind each item, the concerts, the missed beats, the laughter backstage. To him, these weren't just collectibles. They were fragments of life, given back as a gesture of gratitude. And toward the end of this year, fans eagerly await Kiss Army Storms Vegas, a special reunion show scheduled for November 2025 at Virgin Hotels, Las Vegas. For the first time since Kiss's farewell, Eric Singer, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Tommy Thayer will stand together on stage. No makeup, no personas, just 4 men facing the audience after 50 years. No one knows how many songs they will play or if this will be the last time. But for Eric, perhaps sitting behind the drums once more, surrounded by his old brothers in arms, will be enough for a complete farewell. Today, aside from those rare appearances, Eric lives almost entirely in seclusion. He spends most of his days at home, immersed in his passions, collecting mechanical watches, restoring classic cars, and enjoying quiet life with his longtime partner, Geraldine Schofield. The few photos on his Instagram, a cup of coffee, a gleaming clock gear, a ray of sunlight cutting a fracas through his garage, show that he's finally living by the one principle he's kept all his life, keeping time, but this time for himself. The legacy Eric Singer leaves behind isn't measured by explosive riffs or shocking statements, but by endurance, the kind of strength no spotlight can quantify. In a band where every member became a cultural icon, where image and ego often outshined the sound itself, Eric was the rare exception. The man who chose to stand in the background yet kept the entire machine running flawlessly. For more than 3 decades, he was the drummer who ensured Kiss never lost its rhythm, no matter the turmoil. From the death of Eric Carr to the departure of Peter Criss, and through the years when Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley began to slow down with age, Eric remained the steady pulse that kept the band alive. Every strike he made on Revenge, 1992, Sonic Boom, 2009, or Monster, 2012, carried his unmistakable signature, restrained, exact, and yet full of emotion. If Simmons was the fire and Stanley the soul, then Eric was the mechanical heart, the element that kept the band beating for over half a century. His legacy doesn't lie in daring reinvention, but in perfect continuity. In a music world obsessed with the new replacing the old, Eric stands as proof that stability can sometimes be the strongest form of survival. He helped Kiss cross generations, from vinyl to digital, without ever losing its identity. Because of him, Kiss retained its weight and intensity in every drumbeat, every crash of the cymbal. That visceral feeling of blood flowing through sound that longtime fans still describe as a living legend. Beyond Kiss, Eric also played key roles in the histories of Black Sabbath, Gary Moore, Alice Cooper, and Lita Ford. He didn't show up for fame, he showed up for trust, a currency more valuable than any contract in the professional music world. Veteran drummer Vinny Appice once said, "If you want a show that never falls out of time, call Eric." In Hollywood or in the world of metal, that's the highest praise a musician can receive. Eric's influence extends far beyond music. He became the model of the true professional, the artist who doesn't need the spotlight but makes the entire stage shine just by being there. Younger drummers like Matt Starr, Mr. Big, Glenn Sobel, Alice Cooper, and even renowned names like Mike Portnoy have all admitted they learned from Eric the importance of focus, discipline, and knowing how to keep your ego small enough for the music to take the lead. Eric Singer also proved that art doesn't have to be loud to endure. He has no millions of followers on social media, no scandals to feed tabloids, yet he's deeply respected by peers and hailed in the drumming community as the benchmark of precision. Backstage videos showing him practicing fine-tuning mics or checking every drum head before a show are still used today as educational examples of professionalism and attention to detail. And when Kiss finally closed its journey in 2023, with only 3 men left on stage, Gene, Paul, and Eric, the truth became clear. For a legend to last until the very end, it takes more than fame or talent. It takes someone steady enough to keep time amid the noise, someone grounded enough not to be swallowed by glory. That is the true legacy of Eric Singer, the man who didn't create the legend, but kept it alive longer than anyone else. In a world where everything can be replaced, he stands as proof that dedication, discipline, and loyalty can still build something eternal. Eric Singer didn't create Kiss. He didn't write Rock and Roll All Night. He wasn't the first face on the poster, nor the man who stood center stage to ignite the crowd. But when the makeup faded, when the founding members withdrew or could no longer perform, it was Eric who kept the ship on course, quietly, precisely, never missing a beat. His career may not have been glamorous, but it was steadfast. He isn't a legend in the traditional sense, but he's the reason the legend survived. When the shouts fade, when the lights go dark, when all egos have left the stage, what remains is that steady pulse at the center, and that is Eric Singer. He chose to step out of the spotlight the same way he entered it, quietly, without fanfare. But without him, Kiss could never have ended its story so perfectly. And in a world that often only remembers the brightest names, there will always be room for someone like Eric, the man who kept time for a legend without needing to become one himself. Because sometimes, the greatest people are the ones who never try to be remembered. They simply do their work, flawlessly, and then quietly walk away. Just like Eric Singer. What do you think of Eric Singer's quiet yet unbreakable journey? What about him stands out most to you? His precision, his professionalism, or the way he kept the heart of a legend beating until the very end? Share your thoughts and memories of Eric in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join us in uncovering more untold stories of artists who shaped rock history. Not through fame, but through sheer dedication. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.